Do you ever feel like no matter how hard you try, you keep falling off track? It doesn't matter how much motivation you start with, it doesn't matter what your plans are. Life gets messy. You start to feel a little bit stuck and overwhelmed, and you wonder if you will ever get it together. This was me last year. At the beginning of the year, I decided to take roughly a month from posting after I had been posting consistently for about a year in 2023. I had been working on building my brand. I was looking to, I was pursuing rather entrepreneurship. I had gone through so many different programs and trainings and had mentors to support me along this journey. And at the start of the year, my family got sick. I found that I was pregnant. And in order for me to process everything that was happening, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a break for December and I'm gonna come back in February and I'm coming in hot. Well, February came and went and I did not get back to pursuing entrepreneurship. I did not get back to my dreams. I did not get back to my goals. And when I looked up, the year had come and gone and I was trying to figure out what happened and how I was going to get back on track. And here's the truth. Falling off is not a failure. Falling off is feedback. And today I want to talk to you about the reasons why we fall off and what it looks like to reset and start fresh. Thank you all so much for joining me today on my very first episode of Fill Your Cup First. My name is Amber. I am a licensed therapist with over 10 years of experience. And two of my most important roles are that of a wife and a mom. I am also an aspiring entrepreneur. And I'm excited to reset my own journey and share this podcast with you all with the purpose to help share my knowledge and my expertise as it pertains to learning to replenish, learning to give from the overflow, learning how to put self first, learning how to live an abundant life, because that's what we're here for, to serve others and to live abundantly. And so, as I mentioned before, now that you know a little bit about me, right, we're going to look into 3 reasons why we fall off. And so one of the first reasons why we fall off track when it comes to us pursuing our dreams and goals is because we do not address our emotional triggers. Falling off track has a lot of emotional roots, whether it's stress, whether it's perfectionism, even if it's fear of failure. We fall off for all those different reasons, and we tend to default to old patterns. And so for me, as I mentioned before, I chose to take a break in January of 2023. And when February came back around, I struggled with a little bit of guilt. I struggled with even energy some days, if I'm being honest, the physical energy, especially with me being pregnant. I also had different emotional challenges because my oldest child, my oldest daughter, who is now 18, she'll be 19 this year. She was a freshman, she was a senior in high school at the time. And we were working and preparing for prom and graduation. My son had just he was getting ready to turn 2 in April. And so with all these different things going on and adjusting to a pregnancy that was completely out of nowhere, if I'm being completely honest, it was quite a bit. And I didn't stop to take the time to process all of the different things that were happening. And this was just the first half of the year. There was so much more that happened the rest of the year. And as I went throughout 2024, I was noticing what was happening, but I didn't take the time to really stop and acknowledge my emotions and allow myself to really experience fully and even grasp what was happening in my life. And when you think about those emotional triggers, those emotional triggers and why we fall off, for me, like it was a lot. They were all good things. And there was also some challenges mixed in there too that were not so positive. And it caused me to get in a place where I felt stuck and I felt overwhelmed. And it took a lot of courageous conversations to really help me learn how to be more intentional about just addressing my emotions. So again, when you think about reasons why we fall off, one of the main reasons is because we do not address emotional triggers. Also, something else I want to introduce to you all is called HALT, right? So when you think about HALT, it's HALT. Sometimes we have to ask ourselves if I'm hungry, if I'm angry, if I'm lonely, or if I'm tired. H, hungry, A, angry, L, lonely, T, tired. And what we have to do is be intentional about addressing those first, right? And so, when I think about the H, right, the hunger part, it makes me think about the Snickers commercial with the football player when he says you're not yourself when you're hungry. And I think he was a little old lady, and then he ate the Snickers and he ended up turning back into himself. So really, again, just stop and take a time to think about that. When it comes to anger, ask yourself, am I angry? And one thing I want you to keep in mind is that anger is a secondary emotion. So typically what this means is that we felt something before we felt the anger. We felt the anger second, but we felt a different emotion first. So it's important to really explore that and think about, am I angry? Am I lonely? During this particular time in my life, it was pretty lonely because we had just moved to a new city and state. We are coming up on 2 years in February of being here. And on top of that, I am the first person in my family that I know of who has ever pursued something like this before. So it felt different. It felt scary. And I was lonely more often than not. And yes, I have my husband here with me. Yes, I still talk to my family and my friends, and we are still connected, but it's different. It's a different feel. Again, because like I said, I've never pursued entrepreneurship. This was never my dream. This was never my goal. And this is how I know this is a God thing, because this was not my plan by any means. And then lastly, ask yourself if you're tired. I was talking to my husband about a week ago, and it may have been a couple of days ago, when he mentioned, he was like, babe, even when I get a full night's rest, I'm still tired when I wake up the next day. And it made me, and I talked to him a little bit about rest, the 7 types of rest, which is something we'll talk about in a later episode. But there are 7 different types of rest. You have physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, sensory, creative, and I'm missing one. I can't think of it right now. But there are 7 different types of rest. And so it could be the thing where we're getting the physical rest, but we're not getting the mental rest or the emotional rest. Or maybe there's a little bit of sensory overload and we need to take a break from screens or whatever the case may be. So when you're asking yourself this question, when you're using the HALT method, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? It's really important to, again, dive deep into those questions and then address those needs first. A second reason why we fall off is because we try to do too much. We try to do entirely too much. And we set these goals, and a lot of times these goals don't align with the season of life that we're currently in. And we get to a point to where we get burned out. And so when you're making these goals, when you're making these plans, you have to ask yourself, am I setting myself up for success, or am I setting myself up for burnout? So for example, as I mentioned before, when I started pursuing entrepreneurship, I had to do a lot, right? To just build my brand, to put myself out there. And because this was so new to me, my lifestyle was changing. Things that I used to do, I didn't do anymore. I was even putting into place new practices. So in 2023, I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and this started in the summertime. I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and from about 5 to 7, I would do a devotional time. And during this time, I would take time to just meditate, to pray, to hear from God, to journal, whatever he put on my heart. And I believe this was my most creative time of day, because God would give me so many ideas. God would speak to me in so many different ways, and I would feel so rejuvenated after that time. And then, once 7:30 hit, I'm starting my day. I'm taking my daughter to school. I'm getting my son up. I'm working out. We're going outside every day after the workout, and we're doing a couple of laps around our block. And we had a set routine, we had a set schedule, and it was perfect. I absolutely loved it, and I was able to thrive with this routine. And now, well, I guess last year rather, because this was in 2023, so in 2024, I wanted to do the same thing. I wanted to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and have a 2-hour devotional time where I'm able to just sit and read my Bible and pray and ask God to speak to me and hear him. I wanted to be able to have this time where I'm working out and I have my son on this set schedule, but it was challenging. I was in a season of my life that was completely different than in 2024 than it was in 2023. And the biggest challenge of them all was being pregnant through all of this. And so when I think about the things I wanted to practice, the goals I wanted to put into, well, not the goals rather, but the things I wanted to put into practice, it was more challenging being pregnant and navigating so many different transitions than it was the year before. So again, I just want to encourage you to ask yourself, when it comes to the season of life that you're in, when you're looking at your vision, when you're looking at your dreams, when you're looking at your goals, when it comes to the process, when it comes to the steps that you're taking to make it to your goal, ask yourself, am I setting myself up for success, or am I setting myself up for burnout? And then the third reason that we fall off is because we forget to give ourselves grace. Oh my goodness, this is a tough one. When 9 times out of 10, at least for me, I can't speak for everybody, when we mess up, or when I mess up, right, when I fall off track, it is so easy for me to beat myself up. And I will say now, and the space that I'm in now, it's not as bad as it used to be in my past. And the biggest challenge I had in 2024 was struggling with guilt. And I was more concerned about not, quote unquote, not doing the right thing, as opposed to just allowing myself to enjoy the newness of everything that I was going through. And when I stopped and I sat back and I looked at all these different things, when I first decided I was taking a break in January, we started the year with COVID in the house, and COVID was literally in the house for roughly 3.5 weeks, pretty much the full month. And here I am coming up in February. This is when those pregnancy symptoms really started to hit me. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is ghetto. And then in March, we started going all in, which I would have never known. I don't remember being this intense when I was in high school. But in March, we started going all in, prepping for prom. Prom was in April. We did quite a bit of traveling as well. My daughter graduated in May. We did a little bit more traveling that summer, and we moved. When did we move? I think it was late July, early August. It was July. We moved in July because I had the baby in August. She was due August 30th, and she came early. So she came August 3rd. My daughter was set to move into college August 11th. And then after that, I had to adjust to having a new baby while having a freshman in college and a toddler. And oh my goodness, that was a lot to adjust to. There was a lot to embrace. There was a lot to just take on, because that was heavy for me. And yes, they were all good things, but that was a lot. And even when you consider all of the changes that a woman goes through while she's pregnant, and even especially after she has the baby, that 4th trimester, oh my goodness. If I'm being honest, some days I didn't know if I was coming or going, because I'm up almost every hour, every 2 hours, feeding the baby. And then because I had trouble with my milk supply, I would have to stay up a little bit longer after she went to sleep, just to pump. And it was tiring. And then I would still have to get up with my son the next day and the baby. And there was no real routine. There was no real schedule. It was just me trying to make it through the day. And when I sat back and I looked at all of the things that happened in 2024, I didn't give myself enough grace. I was so focused on the guilt of not showing up the way I wanted to that I missed the grace that I needed. I missed the grace, the gift of grace that God gives me every single day. And so when it comes to, again, that falling off, the three things I want you just to take into consideration is being intentional about addressing your emotional triggers, not trying to do too much, and giving yourselves grace. And when it comes to giving yourself grace, here's what I want you to remember. Falling off isn't the end. It's a pause. It's just a pause. And you can press play again. And what I'm going to do now is give you 3 steps to help you reset, 3 steps to help you press play so that you can get back on track. And you do this by implementing or using the 3 R's of awareness. So with the first R, what you want to do is just reflect. When you reflect, I want you to take a moment or take some time to just think back to the moment you fell off track. What was happening in your life? What were you feeling? And keep in mind, this isn't about blame. It's about understanding your why. And so, like I said, for me, when I fell off, not only was a lot happening in 2024, there had been quite a bit that was going on in 2023 too. And a lot of that stuff I didn't really take a moment to kind of just sit with either and process. And so when you are reflecting and you're taking this time to just acknowledge what was happening, remember to give yourself grace. Remember, this is not about blame. We're just understanding our why. Okay. Next, you want to recognize and you want to highlight common patterns. What are the patterns or what are the behaviors that are keeping you feeling stuck or keeping you feeling overwhelmed? And so for me, mine was perfectionism. Oh my goodness. It was like once I realized that February had come and gone and I had not done any posting, it got to a point to where it was like, okay, I messed up. I didn't show up when I was supposed to. So now it has to be perfect. I can't afford to misstep. I can't afford to not do it the right way. And what I had to do to address that perfectionism was learn to be okay with mistakes. I had to learn to give myself grace. And I had to be able to set realistic goals and understand that I couldn't operate like I did in 2023 because this was a different season. So I couldn't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning after I've been up all night. You see what I'm saying? Like I can't get up every single day and work out or whatever all different things that I was doing. Like I had to learn that, like, girl, no ma'am, that you were in a different season. And just learn to embrace the fact that it won't be perfect. There will never be the quote unquote perfect time. I just have to do it. And I have to be comfortable with where I am in life. And then also when it came, another pattern that I had to struggle with was procrastination. And with that one, something that was very important for me was to be intentional about just making a list, prioritizing my task and like breaking them down. So if I had like a really big dream or a really big goal, whatever it may have been, I had to break it down into smaller tasks. And then I had to learn how to eliminate my distractions. I had to delete apps that were not serving me. I had to eliminate behaviors that were not serving me. And what I learned, even when it came to the patterns I identified, the perfectionism, the procrastination, even with me feeling stuck, what I learned and what I realized is God never gave me a different dream. He didn't give me a different vision. He didn't give me a different goal. So it wasn't about me changing my goal or having a plan B. It was about just changing my approach. And so that is something I just want to encourage you to remember, that it's not you don't have to change the plan. It's not about changing the dream. It's literally just learning to understand where you are and then make whatever necessary changes to get back on track. And so when I think about, so again, we reflect, we recognize, and we release. And so when I think about where I was when I started to get back on, when I got back on track, when God spoke to me and I was like able to hear him and begin to move forward, the very first thing I did was I fasted. I needed to get in a space where I could hear from him again. I had to put myself in a position where I was eliminating distractions and turning down the volume on all the different noise and the chaos that was happening inside of me and outside of me, and fast so I could hear from him. And so what I did, I had to surrender. I had to surrender. And here's the thing about surrendering. It's not about giving up. It's not about being passive. It's about releasing the struggle against your circumstances. I fought so hard against where I was in life that I struggled so much because I didn't embrace it. I had to let go and I had to release the struggle against my emotions, because there were times I did not want to sit with my emotions. There were times I didn't want to honor what I was feeling because I was afraid that I would slip into a depression, especially because I just had the baby, and I had all these different things happening. And so I was too afraid to sit with that. And like I said, I had to embrace the season of life I was in. And the way I embraced the season of life that I was in and I'm still in right now is just by becoming curious and asking God, what is it that he wanted me to learn in this season? And so now that I have learned to surrender, now that I have learned to embrace the season of life that I'm in, what I do now, just some different things that I'm practicing now, and I'm still open to this because I realize it could change because my daughter is only 5 months. We do have a pretty good routine in place right now, but I also realize things could change. And so what I'm currently doing right now is when we put her to bed around 7 or 8 o'clock, she wakes up around 3 for her feeding overnight. And I take that time to at least do the daily refresh on my Bible app. So I'm literally taking that time to read and just sit in that moment and pray. I also, even though I haven't got back on my workout routine, I'm eating better. I drink more water. I do intermittent fasting where I eat between 10 and 6. And I'm very intentional about the foods that I eat so I can have energy, so I can, be able to feel replenished and I won't feel sluggish because I'm eating a bunch of junk. And I'm also trying different routines right now. And again, like I said, I'm being open to where I am in this season because I do realize it can change. So I'm open, I'm consistent, and I'm flexible. And I make changes as I need. And so if this was, and so like, that's something else. I was looking at my notes. I'm learning to rest intentionally in all areas. And so where one day if I'm feeling tired and I'm knowing it's a physical thing, during nap time, I may take a nap with my kids. If it's something where I'm feeling like I need some creativity, I may, I love doing things with my hands. I love putting things together. So I may work on a puzzle, or I may color or draw with my son. I may journal, I may write, but just anything to help me rest when it comes to the creative piece. If it's I need sensory rest, I'm turning off screens, I'm turning off tablets, whatever it is that may get in the way. So that's something I've been intentional about, is making sure that I'm getting some type of rest. But again, not just a physical rest. I'm intentionally doing my best to rest in all areas. And so if you found yourself in struggle, like let's just say you've set a goal or you've set a routine that didn't fit your life, I want you to just take a minute to think about what happened when it fell apart. What happened? What did you do? Did you give up entirely, or did you try again? And if you gave up, or if you're on the verge of giving up, I want to give you some homework this week. You have just a quick action step, three action steps rather. And we're basically going to implement the 3 R's of awareness. So the first thing you're going to do is reflect. Just spend 10 minutes journaling this week about your patterns. And I want you to answer these 2 questions. What usually happens when I fall off? So I want you to think about your behavior. That's what you do, what you say. I want you to think about your thoughts. That's what you think. And I want you to think about your emotions, what you feel. What usually happens when I fall off track? And I want you to answer that question. The second question I want you to answer is, what emotions do I feel in that moment? Because we're learning now to start to press the reset button. The second thing I want you to do is practice the HALT method this week. Or should I say next week rather. When you feel yourself slipping, pause and ask yourself, am I hungry? I should say hangry, because that's the thing too. But am I hungry? Am I angry? And remember, keep in mind, anger is a secondary emotion. So, which means you felt that second. So what did you feel first? What was the trigger? What was the event? What happened? And what did you feel? What was the emotion that you felt before the anger? Is it disappointment? Is it hurt? Is it fear? Right? Am I lonely or am I tired? And if you are tired, in what area do I need to rest in? And if that's something that you're struggling with, learning what area of rest you need a little bit more rest in, you can go to restquiz.com and take a free assessment, and they will give you an idea of the areas that you are doing well in when it comes to rest and the areas that need growth. And then lastly, I want you to practice a daily mantra, whatever it may be. So it could be, I am not my mistakes. As I mentioned before, falling off is not failure, it's feedback. And also falling off is a part of the journey. It's how you grow. So again, this week, just spend 10 minutes to reflect and journal. If you can do more than 10 minutes, that would be awesome. Next, I want you to practice on the recognize. Use the HALT method. Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Or am I tired? Next, I want you to release. Okay. And that's how we are practicing a daily mantra to help us learn to release any guilt, any shame, or anything that may cause us to feel stuck. And I want you to share one thing that you're going to work on letting go. Share that in the comment section. And then we're going to work together. We're going to support each other as we are learning to press the reset button together. All right. So until next time, please be sure to take care of you, because you too deserve the love that you so freely pour out.